Hi there, Chris here with another fresh tip for you all. In this video, we are going to continue our work on the Aeldari Rangers from the Eldritch Omens box set. In this video, I'm going to demonstrate painting the camo pattern that we see on the artwork for this box. Basically, it's a fun little camo pattern. I don't know how to describe it. It's basically like a series of lines, chevrons, and diamonds kind of thing. We're going to basically take our Castellan Green and Abaddon Black. We're going to take a very large helping of the Castellan Green, and we're going to take a small portion of black. So about half of that, really. You can see how it's a much smaller little dollop. I give it a nice thorough mixing after adding 2 drops of Lamian Medium. And with this, basically we are not quite where I want it. It's not quite dark enough, so I take another little dollop. So basically this should be more like a 1-to-1 type of mix ratio. It looks really dark on screen, but it's not quite that dark. So when we're planning out these chevrons in this Eldar fashion for this camo scheme, basically all I do is I draw some straight lines. My starting point is basically like a corner, and then running kind of a 45-degree angle from that corner. And I just draw 2 lines, and then basically what we're going to do is we're going to meet them up and then continue building the thickness of each of these little chevrons, lines, whatever we're going to call them. The really tricky part is getting a nice 90-degree angle where they meet out in the open space. Where they come up to the edges of the cloth and such, obviously it just runs right off, so you don't really have to worry about that. But a lot of what sells the effect is having nice, straight, even lines. And if you struggle with this aspect of miniature painting, I highly recommend you do not be afraid and give it a try. And yes, you might make a boo-boo, but that's okay because, that's why pencils have erasers kind of thing. I know, it's a crap joke. You can see here, as I'm beginning to lay these down, again, I'm orienting them to a kind of a diamond shape. It's not a square, it's a diamond, right? If you turn it like 45 degrees, it looks like a square. Essentially it is, right? A diamond. You could also play with the shapes as well, and I'm just going to continue working my way around the figure. Some of the areas, I basically get the line in one go, and I just use basically the thickness of the brush. Now, the brush I'm using here is a standard sized brush, or it's maybe even a number 1 in watercolor brushes, if for anybody who really needs to know. Again, you can see I basically just start laying thicker lines down. I'm just making this up, and really what really sells it, of course, is building up that corner of the diamond. So I just come in and basically refine those edges just so it comes to a nice point. And again, like I said, that is pretty much the trickiest part of this task. And with the hood and the sleeves, it's relatively easy to just kind of, create like a big line starting somewhere on the sleeve and then just drawing it across and then maybe stopping halfway and then coming up another angle, Again, it is all about just kind of, running with it, and there's no rhyme or real reason for how this all works because, again, it's just made up. What really sells the effect, of course, is making sure that you clean those lines up, make sure they're nice and even and straight, and that they come to a nice point at the intersections. Lauren Forest is next. We're going to slap that onto the palette. Oh no, we're going to throw this into the mixture. Sorry. We're basically going to make this almost like a highlight color. And when I just took this dollop of Lauren Forest and mixed it into this mixture, and I begin laying out the highlight color, which is supposed to be a lighter green like we see on the books. When it dries, it actually looks the same color as the rest of the cloak. So I'm not happy with that. So, of course, I will add a little bit more Lauren Forest. In fact, I think we switch over to just pure Lauren Forest, I think. You can see here, once this, I started off a diamond there, but you can't even see it. It just breaks that line. And so I take a little bit of Lamian Medium, just put a drop in there, just to thin it down just a little bit so it's easier to draw with. Another key factor that I will talk about when doing these kind of free-handed designs on a surface is try to keep your brush as perpendicular to the surface that you're working on as much as possible. If you are coming at it from angles and such, you will end up creating jittery lines, or even like uneven lines where they get thinner and thicker. If you've ever had that happen to you when you're trying to create a design on a figure, basically what ends up happening is if you're maintaining a perpendicular angle to the surface, it's just the tip of the brush that is making contact with the model surface. But if it's at an angle, then you're going to end up accidentally using or hitting the thicker points of the bristles, and it'll create a thicker line on that surface. And that's not what you really want. Now here's some of the areas I'm just kind of making up where the diamonds are going, and you can vary the sizes of them, both the dark diamonds as well as the lighter ones. And actually on the lower portion of the cloak, inadvertently I'd made it look almost like a rattlesnake kind of pattern, and so it actually looks kind of funny. And I go back and create some solid diamond shapes. I kind of like the solid diamond shapes, sporadic here and there. You can make the diamonds as big or as small as you can stand, I suppose. But yeah, it's a really, really interesting camo pattern. And somebody was definitely inspired on the painting team when they did these models for the box art, because this camo pattern is really, really fun, and it's really straightforward. And, it has this elf Eldar feel to it because, there's all these diamonds like harlequins and such, and you see all these little diamond motifs all over the place. And so it kind of makes sense that the camo pattern would have a similar kind of vibe to it. Maybe the surface is shimmering like a hollow field, right? And that's often the way they describe these cloaks. They're kind of shimmering with colors to hide the wearer. So once we're done laying in that color, we're going to add a little bit more depth to this, as it's all pretty flat as it is right now. So we're going to build up some shadows. We're going to use Creed Camo and Militarum Green. We're going to mix these in roughly a 1-to-1 mix ratio. We're going to use some contrast medium to thin the color down. And basically what we're going to do is we're going to lay this into the creases and the recesses on the cloak. Now, the reason why I'm using a contrast is because it is a clear paint. Color shows right through. The undercolor will show right through. So on this lower crease here on the cloth, and the part that meets up with the fold that's coming over the cloth, we're going to push the darker values. Now, I didn't want to use a pure green like a orc flesh or whatever. What was the Creed Camo? Yeah, I didn't really want to go for that because it just had quite a bit of green in it, like very saturated green, versus the Militarum Green, which gives you that kind of camo brown green. And so if you end up laying too much down, just quickly draw off your brush, draw the excess off. If you find that you have this kind of this harsh line, if you're fast, you can wash your brush off really quickly and then just feather that edge. And that's kind of what you're seeing here is I'm basically getting rid of some of those harsh lines. You can see like there, you can see it's a harsh line. And so basically really fast, I'll clean the brush off and then feather that out. And that's basically what I was doing there. If you're not familiar with feathering, just leave a comment down below. If you really want some examples of feathering, I have demonstrated it many times in many other videos. Here in some areas like the hood and like the sleeves, I'll basically just lay this down like a wash, just to let it kind of do its thing, fall into recesses. All I'm looking for is to hit the creases and the undersides of things, and just making it all just a little bit darker. And of course, where we have like the chevrons and diamonds and such, basically with these colors, as we push this downwards, that makes those patterns, creates transitions on them without having to actually, mix a color and try and create shadows and things like that. It would be painful if we did that. It would just be painful. I'm trying to make this easy for everybody. Here you can see this is a second layer we're laying in. Again, we're pushing that color downwards and downwards. You can see how that shadow is getting nice and dark onto that crease there. This little crease, we are going to apply it in there as well. And if it's a little too much, you just draw the excess off. And if there's a harsh line, if you're really, really fast, you can just feather that with a damp brush, just like I'm doing here. You can see how it makes the whole surface look a little wet. But, once you get used to feathering is actually a very, very useful technique for creating all sorts of transitions on a figure, if you're not already, doing it yourself. Again, this is really straightforward. I'm just laying it in. I do believe it is about 2 or 3 layers that I lay on these surfaces, and just to create my transitions and just get a nice visual aesthetic going on. It also resaturates the green, and which also really helps right next to the red, making both of them really kind of stand out nicely. Here I'm just deliberately just laying it in some of the creases here and there on the cloak and the hood, on the back side, right between the back of the cloak and the backpack as well. I don't bother with the interior of the cloak. I didn't really feel it was necessary, as we're mainly concentrating on the camo pattern. Lauren Forest is next with some Elysian Green. We're going to use a drop or 2 of Lamian Medium. We're going to slap a little bit of Lauren Forest, Elysian Green, roughly a 1-to-1 mix ratio. We're going to throw 2 drops of medium into it, so it is nice and thin. And with this color, basically, we're going to do some highlights on the lighter chevron diamond shapes. Now, this chevron here, basically on any of the high points, is where we're going to apply our highlight color. Because we have it thinned out, I'm using it to draw in some of the shapes and kind of create some, some hard edges. But then it starts to look a little bit like it's, it's on the surface, or, like it's drawn or whatever. So the diamond there, that kind of hollow, closest to like where the knee is, we're going to correct that. I'm not quite happy with how that looks as we keep moving forward. Again, you do not apply this anywhere where you've applied your shadow values, so that you, again, help create that illusion of depth on the model itself. And we do this all over the figure, on the head, the hood, the sleeves, everything like that. You can see that diamond right by where the knee is, to the right of the knee. So I'm going to take a very heavy helping of water, turn this mixture into a glaze consistency, and then I'm going to apply this in some of the diamonds just to help create a gradient. And this is really one of the fun ways of creating gradients on a figure, is just simply glazing it, which is why so many painters use glazing to achieve their desired results, because it's, it's a very controlled method to create these effects on a model. But once it's all said and done, I think it looks pretty darn fun. It's pretty close to the book, I think. It's not 100%, as, I have no idea how they did it. I just basically went by how it looks. But that is it. Do not be afraid to give this one a try. Big thank you to my patrons. Without your support, these videos would not be possible. If you're considering Patreon support, click the link in the description below. You'll be taken off to a magical website called Patreon, where there are various tiers of support, and a huge, huge thank you to everybody who does. Take care of your brushes, and they will take care of you.